I got to the point where I realised that a degree from this university wasn't going to get me where I needed it to become who I wanted to become. So I was very, very clear in the fact that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was the appealing challenge in my life always. And I didn't believe 3 years sitting in this lecture theatre was going to teach me how to become an entrepreneur. There's never been a barrier or a hurdle in between me thinking of an idea and the destination of it ever happening in my head. But I've always believed that I can get there, even when I probably couldn't.
Steven Bartlett. You'll know him as the youngest investor on Dragon's Den, a successful entrepreneur and the host of his own podcast, Diary of a CEO.
I went to Manchester University to study business management, and I didn't register, but I went down to where I thought my lecture was meant to be. And I sat in the room for about half an hour, got very, very bored. I was convinced I was in the...
Today I'm celebrating 7 years since I recorded my very first conversation for Screw It Just Do It. Today you'll hear a 23-year-old Steven talk about starting his first business in school, aged just 12, of not receiving Christmas or birthday presents from his family, of dropping out of university after just one lecture, and the advice he has for aspiring entrepreneurs. Whether you've been listening to this podcast since episode 1 or today at episode 538, this show means the world to me, and I thank you for your ongoing support. If you'd like me to continue to invest my time and money into this for free, then can I encourage you to follow the show if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, or subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you enjoyed this episode, please tell someone else. I want as many people as possible to be impacted by the message of helping you get from where you are to where you want to be. I hope you enjoy this one.
Background in social media, would you go personal brand or would you go company if you were advising someone starting out right now? What do you think's the key component to be a social influencer, doing it through a personal brand or through a company?
It really depends on the company. Not every company makes sense to develop your personal brand, right? So if you're selling computer servers, let's say, it might not make a huge amount of sense. We felt that the priority in order to grow that business shouldn't be building out the CEO's personal brand. And then the next question becomes, does the CEO or the leader or the MD have the talent to support building their brand? Because that's not always the case as well. So yeah, and it really, really depends on the business. There are some businesses where it's very obvious that building a personal brand makes a lot of sense. Businesses in particular like that include brands where you're selling a product, a new type of product. So that could be where you're selling a face scrub or you're selling protein shakes or something like that. Those things can be very closely attached to a person, and those can live and die off the back of the face that's selling it.
Okay, very, very good answer. And going back to yourself, when you started, what was the initial motivation?
I went to Manchester University Manchester Met to study business management, and I didn't register, but I went down to where I thought my lecture was meant to be. And I sat in the room for about half an hour, got very, very bored. I was convinced I was in the wrong room. I never went back, so I went back to my halls of residence, and about 3 months later, I went down to the university and dropped out. But I did only go to the one lecture. It just took me a while to officially drop out. And yeah, I had a few ideas for a few different businesses, all centered in around the student world and building a student communication medium of some type. And I ended up building Woolpark, spending the next sort of 2 years of my life raising investment, building a team and marketing Woolpark and learning everything I needed to learn about business, which ultimately, at the age of 21, led me on to starting Social Chain, which is the company that I run now and have run for the last 2 years, which was established when I was 22. I was going to say, your question was, what was my motivations to start my business when I was 18? I think the answer to that is I got to the point where I realised that a degree from this university wasn't going to get me where I needed it to become who I wanted to become. So I was very, very clear in the fact that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to run businesses. That's what excited me. That was the appealing challenge in my life always. And I didn't believe 3 years sitting in this lecture theatre was going to teach me how to become that entrepreneur. And that was very quickly sort of validated that belief within 3 months of dropping out, where I actually started learning lessons about business, how to set up a company, how to get investors. I learned all those things just by doing it. My desire to become an entrepreneur, I'm not really sure where that comes from. I've always wanted to build things and create things, and I've never seen anything that stood in the way between having an idea and making that happen. And I think that when I think about why I am here now, I think that's probably the easiest way to explain it. There's never been a barrier or a hurdle in between me thinking of an idea and the destination of it ever happening in my head. But I've always believed that I can get there, even when I probably couldn't.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And going back to when you were growing up, what was where your purpose, where your whys come from? I read that you wanted to create your own birthdays and your own Christmases, for example, because there was never much money going round. Can you tell us a little bit more about where that purpose, where that drive comes from?
Yeah, so when I was, I think, probably about 12 to 14, we didn't get any sort of Christmases or birthdays. My family we just didn't have the money, to be honest. And at the same time, my mum and dad were working such ridiculous hours that they were never really in the house. So my mum would work, she'd get up at 6 a.m. and she'd often come back at about 1 or 2 a.m. So I really never saw her through that period of my life. So I became my own boss when I was 12 to 14, I think it was about 13 maybe. I became my own boss. And what that meant was that if I was going to have the things I saw my friends have in school, I was going to get those things off my own means. And I think those 4 or 5 years of my life taught me that if you want something, it's only going to be achieved through your own efforts. There's no external force. There's no mummy or daddy. There's no handout. And I also had learned that I had a pretty good talent for getting what I wanted through selling or through being quite honest, being able to convince people of certain ideas and things like that. So that, coupled with the fact that I had no choice, led me to starting my own business when I was about 14 or 15 years old. And that was a terrible business, a horrific idea, and it failed. And then I started another one at 16. This whole time I've been running small business. I was the kid at school selling fags, and I was the kid selling sweets and things like that. And I was making good money for selling cigarettes in secondary school. Please don't tell my teachers I said that. But my first real business was when I was 16. That's when I had a name, I had a website. It was on the business directories. And that was a business I called Excite, which is basically an under 18 event for young people. And I was able to get thousands of young people on sometimes 8 or 9 days notice, come to a venue and to pay £5 to enter. Often those events were just my birthdays, repurposed as end of summer party. And if I go on the Facebook page I created when I was 16 from 2000, I can't remember, it was a long time ago, there's 2,500 people in my city saying that they're coming to this event. And there's photographers, there's press, there's all these people. And that was my birthday party. I called it an end of summer party. And so I'd throw about 3 or 4 parties a month and the whole of the city would turn out and pay a lot of money. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And do you think the key skill, or one of the key skills for anybody starting out in business, is that ability to sell?
I think fundamentally, it's very important for entrepreneurs. I think there are certain types of business that you maybe don't need to sell face-to-face as such. You might need to know how to sell online. But I think for entrepreneurs who are building businesses and building teams, you are selling at all times. You're selling to your team. You're selling a vision every single day. You're selling to your investors. You're selling, you'll get money. You're selling to your clients, in our case, people like, the biggest brands in the world, convincing them to back us and go with our ideas. And you're selling at every opportunity. I think the single most important skill anybody to learn in their life is the ability to sell, whether it's selling yourself to a girlfriend or selling yourself to an employer. I think sales is fundamentally at the heart of everything.
And I read somewhere it looks like you're coming up to like 3 years old and you're going to be turning over something like double digits, like 10 million, something like that.
Oh, we're 3 years old now, and yes, that's true.
Wow. And what does the family think now?
I don't actually. I think they're proud. They tell me they're proud. So I don't spend much time collecting compliments. I think people often say that to me. They say you must be so proud of yourself, or you must be chuffed. But I feel like I don't have the time to be chuffed, and I don't have the time to be proud of anything. And we're so focused on forward that we don't spend much time dwelling, because I think that might breed complacency, and sooner before you know it, you've lost everything. So I stay quite paranoid, and I guard against complacency in that regard.
Sure. And is that correct? You've got 4 offices now. Have you got Manchester, London, New York, and Berlin, where you've literally just got off the plane from today?
That's correct.
And future growth, you're looking at any other locations, or do you think that pretty much gives you good leverage for where you're working at the moment and the brands you're working with?
Yeah, at the moment, those are the markets that are important for us. We are growing the business out in various other ways. Some of our service offerings are becoming their own businesses, which is quite exciting. And we're also growing a lot of our media brands. So we own big media brands like Sporf, like Student Problems, which is the fastest growing student community in the world. It's growing by about 170,000 students a week at the moment, and it has been for the last five months or something. We own Love Food, which has got 9 million food followers. And these media brands that we own now, we're really developing those into being the sort of the media companies of the future.
And tell me, the audience who might not be aware of what you do, what would you describe influencer marketing as?
So influencer marketing is just marketing, sending out branded messages or marketing messages via influential people or communities, right? So we at Social Chain, we do 2 things. We are a marketing agency. That's where we work with these big brands doing exciting things, from like disruptive live streams. So one of our brands, we've made them trend on Twitter for 10 weeks in a row. Yesterday they trended number second again, so that's 10th week in a row. We'll be doing stuff on Snapchat for them. We do really exciting, almost hacking these platforms type marketing work to get them mass exposure. And that's really where we've made a big name for ourselves. The second part of social chain is we call it media chain. And that part owns hundreds of big influential communities, from the communities I just named then to the biggest fitness page in the world, the biggest cupcake page in the world with 2 million followers, biggest, you name it, football field page, FIFA page, dog page, cat page, a page with 500,000 people that's just a colour, different colours. And so we own hundreds of these massive communities and have mass reach through them. So, and social chain works with media chain to deliver explosive campaigns. And that's basically what's grown us, this real understanding of how social media works, because we acquired these big media assets, not just the assets, but also people that had created them. So this room that I'm in right now is full of, there's probably 70 people in here, and a lot of them built millions and millions of followers in their bedroom. So they have a really unique knowledge. So network and knowledge, we call it. It's basically what social chain is. Big network of influence and a huge amount of knowledge, which built that influence.
That's brilliant. And if you were cool, and if you were giving advice on anybody starting out now and looking to build their own network from scratch, what would your advice be? Any couple of tips that you could give?
If it's a case of building a big community online, I would focus on finding a niche that you believe you're about, you're uniquely qualified to own. So that it could be from experiences or a passion you have, or a job you have, or something like that. And then I would focus on, it's a long process of trial and error when it comes to growing a community, understanding what content is resonating most with the audience. But I would start producing content today without any sort of real science behind it, and then collect the data on how the content you're pushing out this community is performing. Because some types of content on different platforms achieve different results. So we know, for instance, that there's a certain type of content for Instagram which grows your page the most, even though it gets less engagement. And all of the answers to all of the questions around data and what's working, what's not, can be found in the analytics section if you are care enough to look. So, and you've got to have patience when building a big network or a big community online. I remember our first ever page, we'd done 400 tweets and we had 400 followers. The next 400 tweet, we got to 100,000 followers. But had we not done that first 400, we wouldn't have got there. And that's often been the case for a lot of our communities, where it's, you've got to put a year into it. You'll wake up in a year's time and you'll have hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people. But at the start, there's not really a whole lot of gratification.
Hey, Alex here again, and I wanted to ask you, what defining event are you doing in 2024? Something that's going to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. For me, it's going to be an obstacle course race with Spartan or Tough Mudder. If you'd like to do the same and help you develop the physical and mental strength to take on all of life's challenges in 2024, then I can help. Because Screw It, Just Do It and Spartan, Tough Mudder are partnering up this February to offer you a big discount on their 2024 UK events. For Tough Mudder, podcast listeners can save 30% with the code ToughMud30. Any 2024 Tough Mudder UK event for both distances. The discount expires on the 29th of February and starts on the 1st of February. Just head to toughmudder.co.uk/events and enter the code at checkout. For Spartan, podcast listeners can again save 30% with the code ToughMud30 for any 2024 Spartan UK event, that's Sprint, Super and Beast, with a discount again starting on the 1st of February and ending on the 29th of February. Just head over to uk.spartan.com/EN. Both offers cannot be used in conjunction with any other offer or discount and excludes any of the other endurance race series or the Little Mudder. So join a community of normal individuals with an abnormal commitment to overcoming challenges that will test your physical strength, mental grit and aptitude for camaraderie. See you at an obstacle course race this year.
Thanks for watching this episode of Screw It, Just Do It. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments below this video. Has this episode helped move you closer to where you want to be? All that I ask is that if you enjoyed this episode and that it's moved you closer to getting to where you want to be, that you share this episode so that it helps one other person do just the same. Just ask yourself, what small action will move you forward to get you from where you are, then screw it and just do it. Until next time.